Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, no problem, man. My pleasure.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about some brand new music. Um, so, with that in mind, I mean, what was it like to start writing for this album?
Oh, it was a good feeling, I can tell you, um, because it's been quite a long time since we released Illuminati, the previous album, and that album was released a month before the pandemic, so we couldn't do a lot to promote that album. We were lucky enough to do one European tour before the world came to a standstill, and all those years of not being able to play live properly and stuff like that, and an album that gets drowned in oblivion because you can't promote it. It was very demotivating for me personally. So when I finally found the motivation and the strength again to start writing the new album together with the other guys, yeah, it made me really happy. And especially because we managed to write songs on a good level, strong songs, good topics. So it was like getting my freedom back to finally, be able to create something good again. Because it took me quite a while to find the strength to be able to do it.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine so. I mean, I know the pandemic took so much out of so many people, but I have noticed on the other side of it, I've noticed so many bands and artists have put out some of their best music because of the pandemic, where either they had the time to be able to do it or just all the pain and anger that came from everything that's going on. There was a lot of emotion that comes from it and wanting to come back bigger and stronger. And I really feel like you guys have done that with this album. Like, I feel like it is some of the best material that you've done to date.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I agree with what you say. I also heard that some bands managed to be super creative during that time. And I also hear that certain bands, including us, including me personally, were suffering so much from well, almost like isolation state of being, being at home, not being able to do anything or go somewhere. We even had an evening clock, meaning that we couldn't go out after 9 o'clock. You had to stay home. It took so much of my of the joy away to be creative. I wasn't creative at all. I couldn't. I felt empty and I felt lost. And I think if we hadn't done an album, like right on the start of the pandemic, then maybe yes, then maybe I would have been able to write songs during the pandemic. But when an album comes out, you need time to recharge, and in that time to recharge, you can play live shows and promote the album, and then work on something new. But when the time came for us to promote that album, we couldn't do anything. So it was so frustrating that I lost all my creativity. I lost all the will to be creative. And it took a long time to find that back. And so glad to hear. And you're not the only one. There's many people who tell me that they think this is one of our strongest albums. So it's good to hear from people that we managed to do something good. After all the frustration and the lack of energy to do something new.
And I'm so glad to hear that you came out the other side of all of this and you were able to find the strength and the motivation to make a new album. I know for myself personally, during the pandemic, I reached some of my darkest times, especially with mental health issues. I was going through a lot of that during the pandemic, and I know I'm not the only one, but just hearing that from yourself and like losing the motivation, like what was it that got that motivation back for you to be able to start writing? I mean, was there any particular moments, or was it just like starting to play again, or what was that for you?
Well, we signed a record deal with Raining Phoenix Music, Actually, we signed a record deal with Atomic Fire, the label that was founded by the owner of Nuclear Blast, Marcus Steiger. He sold Nuclear Blast and he wasn't able to do anything for 2 years. And then he founded Atomic Fire and we signed to his label. And we signed there in, I think, 2022. Okay, so it's been a while since we signed, but we didn't put out anything except for the single Asmodeus. So it was time to come up with something because you can't just sign a deal and then do nothing. So it was time to do something. And then when I finally found the motivation, I started writing. And the first new song that I wrote was Hubris Anorexia. Hubris Anorexia is a song about being in confinement because you can only get freedom when you take an injection. Being the COVID booster shots or the COVID injections you got, to be protected against COVID. Especially, and I don't know about where you are, but here in Europe, people who were skeptical about the vaccinations, they've been put aside as crazy people. They've put in isolation because they were not allowed to come into shops, bars, public places. And so basically, they forced people to go along with the program, not knowing how safe it would be. And I became very ill after my booster shot, my third injection. I became very ill. I've been ill for at least a year, and then it took me another year to get rid of it. And now I'm almost back to normal, finally. But so I wrote a song about that. That's hubris anorexia. And when I did that, it was like some sort of relief. It was a song. Well, you've heard it probably, with all the elements of aggression, like this, this soothing middle part with the keyboards, like the calm before the storm, and then the guitar solos, and the song has it all. And it's only 3.5 minutes. It's like a burst of energy. And when I finished that song, and when I sent it to the other guys, they were like, so that's the direction he wants to go. And then the other guys started coming with output, and they or input, and they came with their ideas. And yeah, Jerome, our bass player, he had a lot of stuff composed, but it was all riffs that he said, man, just use whatever you need. So it was great. I could just take whatever, to fill the gaps in my songs. And Dave would write a lot of songs on his own because he had a lot of stuff himself. And then all of a sudden things started to flow, and we finally had an outlet again. But yeah, I wrote that song about the pandemic and being in isolation. I felt like I was in isolation. And just like you, I suffered from it. I was sitting outside my house and during summertime, and I thought, like, what the fuck is going on? And is this real? I can imagine that people have been suffering from it. Yes, I totally understand. And the way the governments have treated people is really terrible. And so I let that out by writing Hubris Anorexia. And then the floodgates went open, and we finished the album in a couple of months.
Yeah, again, I'm so glad to see that inspiration really did come back in full force. And sometimes, sadly, it does take like terrible things that happen in our lives, like being sick over a year from that to be able to find that inspiration. I'm glad you were able to get that back because it's like that can be a really hurtful thing. I mean, whether it's mentally or physically, but the fact that you were able to like get some real catharsis out of that and like show everything that's going on there. And especially when you look at musically and lyrically combined, that song in particular, and just seeing that nice, heavy, aggressive feeling that's, like some of the most dark stuff that's really been going on. Sometimes that really does come from real life experiences.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And it came naturally. And I think to me, those are the best songs. The songs that just pop out. The songs that just are there all of a sudden. And because that's pure emotion. If you try to come up with something and you think, oh, I'm going to do it like this or this, Yeah, it's fine. But the songs that just come naturally, I think those are the best, and that song was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I have to agree. And then just that whole album experience too, because I I mean I usually don't like enjoying just songs like a couple at a time. I like hearing the whole album. And this
Yeah.
really is like that full album experience. I mean, it really has that great black and feel behind it. And the more that you listen to the lyrics, the deeper I grow attachment to it because like I can hear all the pain and heartache that's going in throughout it, and the music just totally matches all of that. When you're talking about like how like easy it was like once everything started coming together and the songs just started feeling natural, like when it comes to the songwriting process, was there anything that you had to change at all, or is it just like pretty much just like the straight up ideas, or how did that come together?
Yeah, it is basically straight up ideas. Um, we never have like a fixed plan. The only thing that we do keep in mind is that we write an album from the perspective of somebody who wants to listen to the whole album. So when we put it together, we take you on a journey. It starts in a logical way, and then it takes you through the highs and lows of the emotions in the music until the last song, and that's the closer of the album. Um, but what about the songwriting itself? Everybody has carte blanche. Everybody knows it should fit to the style of God Dethroned, but um, there's no limitations. I'm not telling the guys you cannot do this or you cannot do that. They um, they write music of which they feel fits to the band and fits to the history of the band, and they know that very well. And yes, some things are completely different, but that's fine because we don't want to do the same. We don't want to repeat ourselves. One of the goals in God Dethroned is every time we write a new album, the music should be original. It should be something we haven't done before. And the same goes for the lyrics. It's quite a challenge because I think this is album number, I think, 13 or something. So especially for me, it's like, oh my God, what am I gonna write about this time? What kind of riffs and melodies am I going to come up with in order to prevent myself from repeating myself? And but we did manage to do that, and but there was no plan. It's just like, okay, I have this. What do you think? Yeah, great. Okay, and then we go on, and sometimes we would inspire each other or tell something about, oh, but maybe we can do the arrangement like this and this. And sometimes it would be like, okay, this is my new song. Here it is. Listen to it. It was all very spontaneous. And I think that helps. It's something we always do. Try to keep it spontaneous. Um, when you think it through too much, it becomes more unnatural. And I like it natural, if you know what I mean.
Oh, totally. And sometimes, like, those first ideas truly are the best ones. I mean, sometimes you got to tweak some things, just to make sure the arrangement's going to work out in the right way. But other than that, like, if you got like a whole idea for a song and it just sounds right and everyone else can agree with it, sometimes those are the best laid
Yeah.
songs. And I do appreciate, just like even going back to Illuminati, like, there's no songs off the Judas Paradox that sounds anything like Illuminati, but it still sounds like God Dethroned. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that so much.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal we try to achieve, to sound like God Dethroned, but to sound new and fresh as well. So yeah,
So, thinking about that a little bit more, I mean, obviously, with that bit of time since Illuminati, I mean, it was important to be able to showcase the album rates. And of course, a lot of things have changed as well, too, like a new label. Well, two labels, if you kind of think about it, or at least a rebranding of a label, but also, like picking out the singles for people to be able to check them out. Like, how hard of a decision was it to be able to showcase what to show off first from the album?
for us it was impossible. I can tell you. Um,
Yeah, I know from my experience, like if you left it up to me, I wouldn't be able to choose a song because I feel like they're all worthy of it.
yeah, I totally agree, and I didn't know. I think I was like, I think my proposal was to do Hubris Anorexia as a first song, but the label said, "Man, we think the Red Kingdom is the best. It's the best first single." I said, "Why?" Well, they said because the way the song builds up with the epic melody in the beginning, and then you start off with the drum rolls, the drum fills, and then the double kick comes in, and then you start with the blast beat and super catchy song. Let's do that one. I said, okay, if you guys feel that that's the best song, let's do it. I had no idea. And then they insisted that the Judas Paradox would be the second one, and the Hanged Man will be the third single. It will be out by August 29 or 30. I'm not sure, one of the two. And then the album comes out on September 6th. So yeah, they had the vision, what should be first, what should be second, etc. And I'm glad because they could look at it from an objective point of view, and they had a certain feeling with it. And I said, okay, if that's what you want, let's do it. And that's good. It's good to have that back and forth with a label to talk about what's good and what's not. And they are super happy with the album. They're super happy with how it turned out, how it sounds. It was the first time that I mixed got Dethroned album completely on my own. So I didn't have to bring my ideas across to the producer. I just could do it myself this time, which was also a big relief. And yeah, if you can work with a label like the way we do now, it's just perfect.
Absolutely. And you did hit on one note I was so curious about, about doing the production side, and of course, uh, doing more of that on your own now, especially for the first time. Like, what was it like to not have that pressure of like outside influence doing that work, and you can focus on it on your own?
It was great, and it was scary at the same time because I always wanted to do mixing. I always liked to do it, and I did it for the demos we made in the past. And during the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I started digging into it a lot more, and I enjoyed it totally. And then when we wrote the single Asmodeus, it was our welcoming gift to the label for signing us. They wanted to sign us, and I said, "Well, here you have a song. You can put it out. You get it for free. Just take it, release it, and then it's the beginning of our cooperation, of our working together." So that was my first real production on a professional level, so to speak. And of course, in the time after that, I became a lot better, and then we were doing the recording of the album, and then somebody else was supposed to mix it. And when I got the first mix, I thought like, this is not something that I like. And I was like, oh my God, there we go again. Then with this, it's all this back and forth between the guy who mixes it and us, and listening to it and giving notes and notes and points for improvement and things like that. I was like, oh my God, I don't want this. And I started mixing myself just to get better at it. And at a certain point, I thought, but my mix does sound better than that of the actual producer. So I'm going to send it to the band and see what they think. And they were like, wow, this sounds great. I sent it to the record label, and they said, wow, this sounds great. So then I finished it. There was no pressure, only the pressure that I felt myself. And but it turned out great. I took the time that I needed. Nobody said you have to hurry up. And we were done in time, and I was lucky to work together with Tony Lindgren of the studio in Sweden. What's his name again? Where Amon Amarth recorded a lot of albums. Bogren,
Oh,
Jens
yes.
Bogren's studio. So Tony Lindgren is the mastering guy at that studio. So I sent him the mix, and he did the mastering, and he was delighted. He was delighted about it. And are you still there?
Oh, yes.
I got a message that my phone is empty. Oh wait, I have to put in the cable. That makes sense. So sorry about that.
Oh, no, not a problem.
Um, yeah, Tony was really satisfied about my mix, and then he did the mastering, and he made it perfect. So he liked my mix, and he just made it perfect with his mastering, and that was so awesome. I mean, it's like the starting point of a new career next to the band, because now I'm also mixing music for other bands, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I totally enjoy doing that.
Uh, yeah, you just took the next question right out of my mouth. I was curious if you would be interested in mixing other bands now that you're really starting to get used to it and really getting comfortable with it. I'm glad to see you're doing that as well.
Yeah, I have to build a little website for myself, and so people can find me actually, and then ask me about it or whatever. So, but I want to do it. Yeah, I want to pursue doing mixes for other bands because it makes me really happy. Yeah,
Well, if the Judas Paradox is anything to go off of, I think any band that reaches out to you is going to get some fine quality mixing on your side because I absolutely love the production of this album and I love how it is mixed. Like every time that I go back to the album, like if I just want to hear the drums, I can listen in and I hear the drums going on. If I just want to hear the guitar tones, I hear the guitar tones clear as day. You know, just like being able to focus on all those things while sounding together so fully mixed together, but you can still hear those layers. And I appreciate it when someone takes the time to actually make sure that it sounds the best it possibly can be.
yeah. I can tell you, mixing our band is not the easiest task because we have so many layers of guitars and little things. Um, Also, when you listen to the album a couple of times, you discover more and more details because there's a lot of details. And I can imagine that when you hear an album for the first time or the second time, there's a lot of details you don't hear yet. But if you listen to it more often, you will discover more. That's the beauty of it. But to get that out in the mix, that everything is audible and nothing is in the way of each other, that was quite the challenge. But yeah, I managed to do it quite well. And when I do a mix for somebody else or another band, I make sure I reach the same quality, and I do the best I can to give a band a production that sounds awesome. I mean, that's what they expect, and that's what they should get.
So thinking about that a little bit deeper, like once you decided that you wanted to do the mixing for this album, start working for others, like did you have to do any massive upgrades to your equipment or anything, or did you have all the equipment right away?
Yeah, for mixing, you don't need a whole lot. You don't need a big mixing desk. You just need, well, I use Pro Tools, for example. You need the right plugins, but they're not that expensive. It's not that you have to invest a ton of money. I started a couple of years ago, so I collected slowly over the years, the right plugins, the right computer. I got a new computer to do this, to make sure I can do this without any problems. So yes, I put in some money, but it's not like you need a super fancy studio or a big mixing desk. That's not necessary anymore. Most producers nowadays mix what they call in the box, meaning from a computer. And of course, you need a good sound system. You need the right near field monitoring and things like that. But if you pay attention, you can do that. It's very much possible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean with the way technology is going nowadays, outside of getting like the real authentic drums, unless you want to resample all of those, you can do almost everything from home without even I mean, obviously, if you want to focus on the drums, however you do that, but just the fact that you can record and plug straight into the computer, you can produce right into the computer, you can mix and master all of that right from home if you want to. And it's exciting times, especially when you have the vision of how you want everything to sound. And you're
Yeah,
able to lay it out the way that you want to, rather than always having to explain it to somebody else who might not understand.
that's true. Something to keep in mind, though, is the fact that you need to build up experience. If it's your first time recording something, and when it's your first time mixing something, it's not that easy because you have to find out a lot of things, how to make it work together, how to make it sound together in the right way, and stuff like that. So it's something you will have to learn by experience. So when it's your first project, yeah, then it's still quite challenging. So yes, you can do everything from home. That's true, but to do everything right from day one, that's something else.
Oh, definitely. But with someone of your resume and the experience that you had, I mean, the fact that you are able to do that from home, it's an incredible thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I'm glad I had the experience built up, and so I was able to do it properly. And yeah, to do it from home, that was awesome. Yes, and yeah, it's possible. Everybody can do it, basically.
So we covered so much audibly about what's going on with the latest album, but also visually, I love what's going on, especially with the album cover. I think it just fits so perfectly with the album. It is very striking. I love the color that goes along with it. Where did that come from?
As a matter of fact, it's a painting. I I will look up for you who did it. It's a painting that's in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So that's our biggest museum in the Netherlands. And the painting was done by a guy named Alexis Lair. Um, and the painting is called The Fall of the Rebel Angels. And the painter lived from 1650 till 1713. So, you can use paintings like this for artwork if you mention in your booklet who painted it. So, yeah, so instead of doing something new, or trying to get an artist to do something new, we decided to come up with this, an existing painting. But it fitted very well to the album title, to the concept, and it's a beautiful painting. So that's why we decided to go this way this time. And yeah, I'm glad you like it. Actually, I do too. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, and sometimes you just see something like that and you just know that you want to be able to incorporate it in some way. And I'm glad that everything did work out that you could use that because obviously that the album cover is not the intent for the album, but it works so perfectly when you see that out there. I mean, from the first time I saw it, and I imagine like the vinyl release, it's just going to look so striking with the logos and everything on there. It's just it just fits the mood of the album so well.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. And yes, it's always. I guess it's a bit like when you do a new album, you want an album cover that suits the music, that suits the atmosphere. And also there is always a challenge to come up with something new, and not do an album cover that somebody else has done or something like that. And there's so many albums coming out, so it's not that easy. It's quite a search to find something that's beautiful and not being used already. But yeah, we managed, and I'm totally happy with it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, of course, it's only a few weeks now until the album release, and of course, you mentioned that there will be a third single coming out. But after the release of the album, what's coming up next?
A European tour. We have a European tour coming up with Batushka and Ultimas. Um,
That's
and
quite
this
the
tour,
bill.
yeah, I love it because it's it gives us the opportunity to be as musical as we can. And by that I mean that many times we go on tour with bands who are very extreme, and we fit to all kinds of bands because we have songs that are very extreme, we have songs that are very melodic and mid-tempo, and we have songs that are very atmospheric and epic. But many times we end up with bands who are a lot more extreme than we are, so we try to fit in the bill and play a bit more the faster songs. But this time around, with this billing, we have the chance to focus a little bit more on the atmospheric part of the God Dethroned songs. So we can play the title track, we can play Illuminati, we can play from this album, we can play The Kashmir Princess, for example, the more atmospheric mid-tempo songs. Of course, we will also play some fast stuff, but we know that we will have an audience that is more into the melodic and atmospheric stuff of the songs, which is great because it's a new way for us because usually we play for people who want to hear extreme stuff, a lot of extreme stuff. So it opens up possibilities. This tour, it's quite a long tour. It's from September 26th till October 28th, so it's a full month. It covers a big part of Europe, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. And then hopefully we will come to tour the United States early next year.
Oh, I'd love to see that happen next year. But until then, I mean, this current tour, I'm glad to see this kind of bill as well. Like for so much of what you mentioned, being able to focus more on atmospherics, but still showing what God Dethroned is all about. My favorite kind of bills are the ones where none of the bands sound alike, but they all fit together in some way, shape, or form. Like there might be a more extreme band, but there might be a more subtle band. There might be one that fits right in the middle. That way you don't get fatigued of listening to the same style all night. You get a good variety. And that's what this bill is. It's a very good variety, and it sounds like it's gonna be a great night every night.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a lot of variety, and the fans don't have to listen to blast beats from beginning till end. On a night like this, and there's nothing wrong with playing blast beats. Don't get me wrong, because we use it a lot as well, and I love it. But if all the bands do the same, then it gets really boring. And this time around, it will be very musical. It will be very atmospheric and melodic and all kinds of atmospheres. And that's just awesome to me.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about that. If everything does come together for North America next year, I'm so excited to see what kind of bill will be a part of that. I mean, even if it is like a more one-sided or more varied, I'm just excited to see you guys coming back over here, especially with after the pandemic and everything. I mean, it's glad to see slowly but surely things are getting back to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah, I have the feeling it takes a while before the world is back to normal. I have the feeling that at the moment things are very chaotic, especially when it comes down to touring. Everything's so expensive. Fuel is so expensive. Um, People are a bit edgy nowadays, especially over here at least. People are not themselves yet. It seems like this had so much impact on their well-being that people are a bit off still. But slowly but steadily we are getting back to a more normal world. And it would be great if things would go back to normal. And also the whole touring thing, because it's so hard to get a good tour nowadays. And I'm really happy that we managed to get on a good tour because yeah, otherwise you have no way to really promote your album. Uh, it happened once. I don't want it to happen twice to us.
Absolutely. And although I will say, it's just like, I mean, with all of the chaos that is going on in the world, it is always nice that, at least from the fan perspective, to be able to get out of your living environment for one night and be able to see some bands that you love, or sometimes bands that you're experiencing for the first time, and just try to forget about the troubles of the worlds or the trouble that you're going through, and just be able to have a few hours and just be able to have some good music that's going on with that. And despite the fact like everything is skyrocketing in price, everything is getting harder to be able to manage, I'm glad again that God the Throne is back with a brand new album, looking at touring, being able to promote the new album, which, as great as it sounds on record, I think it's going to sound better in the live setting as well too. And it's great to see it's going to be getting that appreciation live, and just everything that's going on. I mean, from the beginning when we started talking about like going through the pandemic to now, again, slowly but surely, hopefully things getting back to normal. I'm glad that God the Throne is still here, and thank you so much for doing so.
Yeah. Well, thank you first of all, and music is a relief. If I have a day where I don't feel that great, I take my guitar and I start playing, and all the negativity goes away. So being able to play with a band and being able to tour is good for my health. It's especially good for my mental health because it relaxes me. I like being on tour. I like meeting other people. I like visiting other countries. And yeah, it's something I always needed in my life. And I guess it's maybe the reason why we exist already for so many years, because it's a fire that needs to keep on burning. And yeah, the end is not in sight yet. I think we can manage to go on for a while.
Oh, and I'm so glad to see that. I mean, if this is what you're doing on the first album post-pandemic, I'm so excited to see what that next release will be whenever that time comes. But until then, I love what's going on with the Judas Paradox. I can't wait to be able to show off this interview, show my review when the time comes the week of, and just being able to talk to you again. We got to talk during Illuminati, and of course, life changed so much, and it's great to be able to see like the before and after the pandemic, and just being able to have a great conversation like this, being able to talk about some real things that matter, like going through mental health stuff, what we've dealt with the pandemic, being able to grow as a musician in other forms, and being able to expand your wings, like into mixing and the production side. There's so much cool stuff that we got to talk about, and I thank you so
Yeah,
much for all of it.
yeah, man, my pleasure. And thank you for being the kind host that you are, and for your nice questions. And hope to see you on tour. Actually, it would be great.
Oh, absolutely. I'm eagerly waiting for those tour dates, and when they get announced and everything gets official, I think that's going to be awesome to see in 2025.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Well, awesome. Well, I know things are busy for you right now, but again, I appreciate your time doing this. Always love what you do. It's always great being able to talk to you, and I hope you have a great rest of the night.
yeah, man. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. And thanks for the interview.
You as well. Thank you
All
again.
right,
Bye
man.
bye.